Hi everyone, my name is Alaa and I'm very excited to be here and presenting our work on account security interfaces. This is work that I've done along with my co-authors, Marina Bohuk, Dell, Rosie Bellini, and Tom Ristenpart. Nowadays, people are increasingly relying on multiple devices to access their online accounts. According to a 2020 survey, an average American has access to more than 10 connected devices in their household. Of these devices, on average, a person has more than 2 computers and more than 2 mobile phones. However, online accounts do get compromised more often than we think. And that's why account compromise is a critical problem. This can happen for a number of different reasons. So while typically commercially motivated attackers compromise accounts for spam or to commit online fraud, other individuals such as at-risk users like survivors of intimate partner violence, activists, and political dissidents might be targeted by abusive adversaries or nation-state actors. For this group of users, an incident of account compromise can actually be life-threatening. And thus, we believe it is important that users can determine if their accounts have been compromised. And the companies are sort of increasingly becoming aware of this problem, and they have begun to deploy account security interfaces, in short, ASIs, to enable users to diagnose a compromise event. This multi-step incident response process, which was first characterized by Red Miles in 2019, involves an initial step where a user's suspicions are first raised as a result of a new login attempt, for example, and then what we call the diagnosis stage, where a user is redirected to a page where they can further investigate the login attempt. And then once a user determines that they don't recognize the activity, they're redirected to reset their passwords, also known as remediation. However, most of the prior work in this area focuses on the first phase where suspicions are raised and the final remediation phase. We are unaware of any work that explored whether users can really determine if their accounts have been compromised. And we think this is important to explore because for some at-risk users, it may not be safe to remediate the account in the first place. Yet it is vital that they investigate the accesses to their accounts. And we sort of see this more pronounced in an intimate partner violence threat model, where an attempt to reset passwords might actually escalate the abuse. And this sort of brings us to the question that this work will try to answer. Can the current designs of account security interfaces support users to determine if their accounts have been compromised? So to answer this question, we first conducted a survey of modern ASI designs across 4 services, and these are Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Apple. Following this investigation, we conducted a qualitative analysis on IPv clinic data to understand the limitations and challenges of ASIs. And finally, we performed an experimental analysis on these interfaces across the 4 services studied to evaluate the integrity of these interfaces. So overall, we find that account security interfaces are very important, but they are difficult to use. We also show that simple attacks can undermine the integrity of information on these interfaces, making them untrustworthy. So first, for our survey of ASI designs, we found that there are a variety of designs across the 4 services. And at a higher level, we sort of partition ASIs into 4 distinct categories. First, we have device lists, which are interfaces that provide users with information on the devices that access their accounts. We find that Google, Facebook, WhatsApp, and Apple all have device lists. The second category of interfaces are session lists, and these provide users with a list of currently active or terminated sessions. And then we have activity logs, which show recent security activity on an account, and security activity encompasses like a wide range of things. This could be recent logins, changes to password, or account recovery configurations. And finally, we have access notifications, which are simply interfaces that communicate access information to users through in-app or email notifications. So we then conducted a study of the use of ASIs in the context of IPV. Why IPV? Because intimate partner violence is a serious problem where, according to the CDC national survey, 25% of women and 11% of men were subject to rape, physical violence, and/or stalking by an intimate partner. So to conduct this study, we've partnered with CEDA, which is the Clinic to End Technology Abuse that is based in New York City and operates under a model of clinical computer security that was first introduced by Havern et al. So survivors are referred to the clinic to obtain personalized support from a trained technologist. To date, more than 400 survivors, also known as clients, were referred to the clinic. We find that at CEDA, a typical interaction between an IPV tech consultant and an IPV survivor during a consultation would usually involve the use of ASIs. For example, as part of a routine account security checkup, a consultant would ask the survivor to pull the device logs on their account. Following that, the consultant gives navigation instructions to get to the specific interface, and then they would ask the client whether they see any device on the list that they don't recognize. The client might or might not recognize the devices on the list, and as we see here, the survivor says, "That was an extra phone, that is so creepy, so there was an extra phone on my account." So to find relevant data on how ASIs are being used in clinic consultations, we performed a regular expression keyword search on IPV clinic data. The clinic's content management system contains a total of 220 transcripts of client consultations conducted between May 2019 and June of 2022. Our search resulted in a total of 96 transcripts where ASIs are being discussed between clients and consultants. And to ensure we had a balanced amount of transcripts per service, we filtered down our transcript set into 28 transcripts covering 4 different services, which are the same services: Google, Facebook, Apple, and WhatsApp. And then 3 members of the research team completed 2 rounds of open coding to the dataset. Our analysis revealed that ASIs are important for at-risk users and are mainly used for 3 main reasons. They're first used to summarize account activity and security settings. And then they're also used to prove suspicions of account compromise. So here the client says, "I'm in the process of divorce. I wanted to have this screenshot as evidence. Every time I see that he is connected, I take a screenshot to have it as evidence." And then finally, to make decisions, these ASIs are usually used to make decisions to manage the personal risk and safety of clients. Even though these account security interfaces are very important for IPV survivors, we did find that clients run into some limitations and challenges with these interfaces. So first, we find that complex navigation flows and the inconsistency of interface designs across the 4 services is very confusing for both clients and consultants. Additionally, clients also run into challenges identifying devices on a device list. And this could be due to a number of different reasons, among which is the permanence or duration of a session or log on these interfaces. And finally, we find that clients find it hard to establish associations between a device on the device list and the corresponding phone number. So for example, here the client asks confusingly, "He has my phone number, is he getting my messages?" So given the importance of these interfaces for IPV survivors, we further wanted to evaluate the integrity of the information presented on these interfaces. So in this scenario, we assume that the adversary has the victim's login credentials, as often seen in IPV contexts, but is logging into the victim's account from on a different device. Their goal is to log into the victim's account without them knowing. So they want to ensure that the device and associated login either do not appear in any of the victim's account's ASIs or do appear, but the information displayed makes it appear to be a benign login coming from the victim's device. The online service, in this case Facebook, as we see here, has these device logs that show information about devices that have recently accessed the account. This information is like device type, operating system, location, and time of login. So the attacker has two options. The first option is to hide their login, so the device or login does not appear on any of these interfaces, and this is what we call a hiding attack. For example, as we see in this lower figure here, the BlackBerry entry on the victim's view will simply disappear. We find that a hiding attack is trivial and that an explicit logout hides accesses on most ASIs. The second option that the attacker has is to spoof the fields that appear in the interface. So it looks like the victim's device. And this is what we call a spoofing attack. For example, the Mac entry that we see here is going to change into an Android entry that is similar to the victim's. For spoofing attacks, these were also relatively simple, as services seemingly rely on untrusted client data to populate these interfaces. In specific, we find that the system information, device model, and OS information on the interfaces are pulled from the user agent string of the HTTP request header. And changing the user agent string on the login request results in a spoofed device model, operating system, and browser. Additionally, to spoof the location, we just used a regular commercial VPN where across all services, the location identifier was either spoofed or suppressed, hidden. Of course, this is a simplified version of our results, and we refer the audience to the paper for more detailed results on spoofing attacks across the 4 services studied. So in summary, we talked about how ASIs are important for users in safety-critical situations to investigate ongoing account compromises. Furthermore, we also discussed that these interfaces have confusing navigation flows and terminologies where the need arises for more uniform design patterns and consistent terminology. And finally, we showed how simple attacks can undermine the integrity of these interfaces, and that we hope future work can explore more ways to provide ASIs with trustworthy data sufficient to make diagnoses. Thank you.